You are being forwarded to the contact center coach.
This program is sponsored by Proponisi, where I'm the president and CEO. Proponisi is the Greek word for coaching. We provide SaaS technology to centers like yours. Most contact centers struggle with their people, whether it be overcoming monotony, attrition, or getting superior performance. Our solution makes it easier and cost-effective to get even more than you could possibly have expected from your front line. The result is loyal customers, engaged employees, and winning, provable, profitable results. You can reach us at proponisi.com.
Hello and welcome to the Contact Center Coach video podcast. I'm Michael Tamer. If you know me, then you've probably been listening to my audio podcast, which I have almost 80 of them out there. But I've also decided that you've heard enough of me, so I need to bring in other bright, talented people for you to listen to, and this week is no exception. So I'm very pleased to welcome Jim Iyoob. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello, Michael. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about today.
Well, you know what? I always introduce the folks first because then I have to read their bio, and it usually takes a while. So I don't want them to be sitting there just waiting to be able to talk. So with that, Jim, let me introduce you. So Jim Iyoob is the Chief Customer Officer at eTech Global Services. He's a 33-year veteran of the call center BPO industry, and I guess that could be outsourcer, and there's probably some other names over the course of 33 years that has changed. His responsibilities for eTech include strategy, marketing, business development, program implementation, operational excellence, and SaaS product development across all their lines of business, which are eTech Customer Engagement Solutions, eTech Insights, and eTech Technology Solutions. Jim has co-authored 3 books with his lifelong friend and mentor, Coach Matt Rocco. That's Quality Monitoring in the Contact Center, The Future of Contact Centers, and Delivering Customer Experiences That Matter. He's spent the major part of his career in contact center operations and really just understands everything about the customer's challenges and their requirements and their processes, which allows him to help them to develop, implement, and retain some of the most successful award-winning programs that deliver what really counts, which is consistent ROI. He speaks everywhere and conducts many workshops, and he's been featured in numerous publications, including CIO Review, Contact Center Pipeline, Connections Magazine, and was also listed as one of the top 20 influential people to follow on Twitter. I want it now. So, Jim, I want it now. There we go. Welcome, and glad to have you here. And let's talk contact centers and let's talk BPOs. But just to get started, tell me what you actually do today. I know I kind of mentioned it, but tell me what a day for you looks like.
Yeah, so great question. So, Michael, today I'm the CX officer, and transparency is what it is customer experience. And well, I head up sales and marketing for eTech. So I'm actually out establishing new customers, new contacts as well, implementation. Because a lot of times you think about what we do today, it's a variety of things, which is delivering an unbelievable experience for the customer because you are an extension of their brand. So you have to implement it correctly in the first part. So that's implementation. When you talk about eTech Insights, that's really the holy grail of where we're going today. Anybody in the contact center industry can answer a phone call and take care of your customer's request and do what you tell them to do. I really never bought into that model because really it's what can we do better? So by using insights, you're able to actually not only help the agents who are answering the calls on the customers, but we give actionable insights to them to make them better based on behaviors. And then secondly, the voice of customer sentiment analysis. So I do speak publicly, as you know, and it's kind of funny. People say, well, I'm using surveys. Well, let's be honest. Surveys work. What do you get? 2 to 4% response rate if you're good. And if you're going to talk about surveys and really defining the customer experience, you're taking all your data and it's biased data because there's 3 reasons people fill out a survey. 1, you went above and beyond, which you know from the days we met back in the early 2000s when we went to your events, that you went above and beyond. It's physically impossible on every call. 2, you upset me so much that I want to complain. or 3, you bribe me with your $5 Starbucks gift card to fill out your survey. So when you talk about insights, when you analyze all of the interactions and take it above agent performance or just agent behaviors and talk about what the customer's saying about you, your brand, your processes, and extrapolate and analyze that data and give it back to your customer to help them improve on 3 categories: people, processes, and technology. And that's really what I'm passionate about, is a thought leader to give you ideas that you may or may not have heard of or didn't have the data to back it, to make a change, right? Because in the traditional context, and since I grew up in ops, think about it, and I started my career as an agent. And I mean, customers will tell you stuff all the time, but are we listening to them, and are we actually using the data to our advantage to make change? And the answer is most of the time not. So that's kind of what I do in my everyday world, is just look at data, look at behaviors, and how can we improve the agent, their experience, your customer, meaning the consumer and customer, their experience. And then the third bucket is the client. What can we do to help them on their people, processes, and technology? That's kind of what I do every day, and love what I do every day.
Well, okay, so let's ride with that for a while. So with the data and with the myriad of different experiences that you have, what are people learning? Give me some aha perspectives that a leader, because this podcast is usually watched either by brand new leaders that are just trying to get started, or people that have been around for a while and are looking for some sort of a competitive advantage or something that they might be able to use. Give me, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but
Sure.
give me a couple of aha moments that you've seen that are maybe some things that people don't normally see, or they might be able to look into, or something about the insight that you've experienced.
Yeah. Awesome. So many. Let me pull one of my favorites up. Training, hold times. So in an analysis we did for one client, we found out that agents were putting people on hold for an average of 4.2 minutes.
Wow.
So you would think, so when you look at it from an ops perspective, the first thing we do is we say, when we need to fix this hold time, we got to find out what's going on. And you're actually having conversations with agents, and you're having conversations to find out what's going on. So our data scientists and engineers and analysts went in and looked at about 100,000 phone calls, of which we found out the reason, because it wasn't every call, because think about data. Data, you see hold time, and it's averaged in across all of your markets, all of your areas, and you're thinking, okay, average hold time, we got to fix that. But when you look at analytics differently, like we do, so at eTech, we said, let's find out where is the highest hold time. And interestingly enough, in this particular instance, it was all questions related to warranty. So now you got a little bit of surgical insight. So now let's dig down farther. So now that I know it was on a warranty, what problem, what product, what question? Come to find out at the end of the story, I'll make it shorter, the agents had to physically go through a binder, manual binder. So it was taking them time to find it because it's a complex product. So actually what our recommendation to the client was, we can digitize this and make it searchable. And you're talking, a couple of years ago, it's not like, but it's amazing. Some companies don't think like that because, this in the business, you get your binder, here's your training material and all that kind of stuff. And people have to search for it. But when you were able to surgically go down and find out specifically what it was, handle time was dropped by over 28% in a matter of, weeks when you digitize it. And another story that comes to mind is behaviors. So a lot of customers will come to us and say, hey, here's our script, and this is what works. Okay, that's great. So let's run it through analytics. You run that through analytics, you find out that your top performing agents actually deviated from the script and use a little bit of a, scripted is one thing, but you know this as well as I do, it's guidelines. And we found the best performing agents actually modified it a little bit, and they were actually outperforming everybody else. So again, when you go back to data, you bring that to your customer and say, look, 100,000 phone calls, here's your process. Here's what the top performing agents are doing. Let's change the process. Easy. When you're giving them data, it makes it easy for them to go up the channel. Those are a couple insights that we look at differently because, people used to use dispositions on why you called. So let's be honest, most dispositions are incorrect in the first place because the agents sometimes are lazy and they just pick the first or top on the list. So by actually analyzing every interaction, you know exactly why the customer called by using speech to text to say, hey, Michael, I'm calling you because I have a problem with my car. And by the way, I have a problem with my bill. So now you've actually pinged two things that they called you for, and you're able to identify and surgically go in and look at the data differently. Does that answer your question?
It does. Let me just, Jimmy,
Sure.
just peel it away just a little bit more, because if you work in a contact center, you're probably saying, listen, I need another number to measure like I need a hole in the head. I got more than I know what's due. And you're saying you're using terms, not tens, not hundreds, not thousands. You're using 100,000 terms. So brag a little bit about how you can deliver that information in a way that's simple, so that I'm not just inundating these folks with more information that they know what to do with.
Yeah. So in the old days of contact centers, and when you think about it, we used to monitor calls. What'd you listen to? 3 agents or 3 calls per agent per week. So you're averaging about 12 calls. So again, you make all your decisions.
That's a big number, actually. That's a big number.
Agreed. So E-Tech's always been above the bar, by the way. We never go for the minimum. So even since I've been here 22 years, and even when I was in ops, I was listening to more than the average call center would. And then when speech to text came out, you said, wait a minute, I can listen to more and I can get more valuable insights. So we literally, from a learning at E-Tech, we've taken agents who used to be on the phone and created new jobs called data analyst, data scientist, and data engineer. So these were operational people who were actually able to massively look at data differently. So when you're ingesting 100% of your calls, which is what E-Tech does, now you have a different, it's not it's more than a valid statistical sample size. These guys are looking at thousands of calls. And since they've done the job, they know where to look and how to improve the process, right? So, and if you talk about in our bio how I run E-Tech Technology Solutions, that's our software development side. Like others, I was out on the market looking for something that could help me better monitor, better do things. And I never saw anybody build anything that was that exciting to me from an operational perspective. It's always about data, massive amounts of data, and big data. I mean, that's really all speech analytics is a new word people use from big data days. But at the end of the day, it's never actionable. So E-Tech created their own softwares that takes all this disparate data and actually analysts make it actionable for an ops person. So at E-Tech, our leaders spend 85% of their time coaching people. That's their job. They shouldn't be pulling the data, to your point. They shouldn't be looking at a bunch of spreadsheets. If you build the technology to help support them by delivering what's actionable and what's not actionable, that's really what we've done to actually help our agents. So that's kind of what we did. And that's kind of how it works, if that makes sense. So you're analyzing millions of data points, but you have to have a human being. Because by the way, people talk about AI and speech analytics, and it's going to remove all your people. I laughed at several CEOs when they tried to sell me at E-Tech. They tried to sell us speech analytics, going to remove your whole QA department. No, you're not. Yes, it's automation. But automation is checkboxes. Did the agent do this? Yes or no?
Compliance.
Correct. Compliance is good too. The holy grail in any master quality management program would be, give me the data that's important, make it actionable, and tell me what to do with it. And that's where an analyst comes in, because an analyst tells you who, what, why, where, when it happened, and the holy grail that all these tech stacks miss, how to fix it. And that's the one thing. I've met several CEOs in these founding companies of AI and speech early back 6-7 years ago. And I'll never forget this, because the one guy tells me, he says, but Jim, if I give you all the problems, shouldn't your leader know how to fix it? Yes, they should. But let's be honest here. Anybody in the BPO space, we've promoted people that probably weren't ready to be promoted out of a need of scale. So they're new. So they don't know all of it. So how do you effortlessly teach them how to learn the data? So that's where those human beings, which we've compiled AI plus HI, which is human intelligence and obviously artificial intelligence. And that people side of the business is the most important. Now, sure, you have a percentage of your leaders that know the data and grew up and were born in ops and have been doing it forever. But the newer leaders, they're the ones that need the most help. So how do you help them? You explain it and show them how to fix it. Because when you show them and teach them and show them the way, that's what's going to make the difference, not just giving them a bunch of data. And let's be honest, you've been in this business long too. You remember from the old days when we were at the top reps and all those things where you talk about how great your agents are. That agent becomes a manager or a leader. They need training, as you know, and it takes time. So that's why we've developed our processes behind human intelligence to augment and help the artificial intelligence.
Well, let's go there. Let's talk about leaders, and let's talk about your kind of perspective on leaders, because my podcasts are all about leadership. So, man, first I'm just going to give you open door. Give me some advice for leaders, or give some of our leaders some advice from you on just some things they should know and they should do.
Sure. So I will tell you, as a young leader myself, I started my career as an agent. Okay, back in the day. And I had great mentors. Advice number one, get a mentor. Everybody needs a mentor. Okay, at eTech, we don't call people here supervisors and bosses. They're all leaders and coaches, because everybody needs a coach. So my first advice, and I've had the best mentor in the business, Matt Rocco, our president and CEO of eTech. I've been with the guy over 30 years. So when you take someone who takes a liking in you and helps develop you, I've always learned from him to always mentor others. So that's my first one. My number two, I read articles upon articles upon articles every day. And I continually tell people, even at eTech, read an article a day. I typically read 5 to 7 a day because I always want to see what's going out. The world is changing, right? And if you think about business, right, for a new leader, self-learning is probably the best thing you could ever do for yourself versus what I call forced learnings, which, you know, the company has sometimes. They force you to go to a training program. They force you to go to training to get the flavor of the month that they're interested in, make you check all the boxes, get your certification, and where does it go? In a filing cabinet. But when you read articles of industry and read articles from other people, you get a different insight. So I'm a self-learner. I always learn. And I continue to, I tell people all the time, evolve. Because if you think about today's customer as an example, I've been in the contact center business, you know, over 30 some years, and everybody says it's changed. Really, the job is the same. What has changed is the customer's expectations. Because 10 years ago, it was okay for you to put me on hold for 30 minutes. Because by the way, I had nothing else to do. So, and that's the way it was. But today you can't get away with that. So while the customer's expectations have changed, the only way to understand where everybody's going is, and again, is that self-learning. I have tons and tons of books. I am not as diligent in reading books as I am with articles, and here's why. Because when you read an article, it takes 5 minutes. So you can never tell me you don't have time. If you can't spare 5 minutes, you need to go to time management classes. And I get a book. A book sometimes takes a month to read, depending unless you're on the beach somewhere. But that's my other advice, is to read a lot and always stay up to date. And then the last part of it I would tell you is reinvent yourself continuously. So you and I have met, God, it must have been 20 years ago. And back then I was an account leader when I first met you. And I was managing coaches and agents. And today I'm in the C-suite, right? But I would have never got to where I am today without self-learning and reinventing myself. Because 20 years ago, when you and I first met, business was a little different. We didn't have all the tools that we have today in our tool belt. So by evolving and self-learning, it's helped me grow as not only as an individual, but help others grow to see. And it's funny, our Dean of Leadership Development tells me that I wear glasses, as you see, but she says, I look at things through a different lens, which is true, because I don't look at it from a process. I look at it from an experience. and I take all of the personal experiences I've had with any brand, good or bad, and I figure out how can we as a company implement the best of the best to deliver that experience.
So, that one of the challenges that leaders have, and with your 30 plus years, you've experienced this, is that no center's perfect, right? It's like that expression, if you're looking for the perfect church, don't go there because you'll just mess it up, right? So everybody's got issues, and one of the biggest issues is time. I mean, you used the term earlier, 85%, of their time is spent coaching. Well, that's highly unusual. That's not what most people get. Most people don't have enough time, and yet there are things that they have to do and they have to get done. Tell me a little bit about time management and the frontline leader or the contact center manager that's just sitting there and they're overwhelmed and there's so much going on and they need to do this analysis. And I guess I'm looking for some advice on how there might be some things they can pick away or tear away. Obviously, they go to eTech, but what can they do to free up some time from their day and get to do some of the things they really need to do?
So I think a lot of those things, if you think about in the old days, because by the way, eTech runs differently than most organizations. Obviously, we represent, as you know, some of the biggest brands in the world, and there's a reason. We're not a big, huge company. We are a global company. But what we found, what work is the coaches are the leaders doing that really can be done by admin? So as an example, payroll. A lot of call centers make the managers manage all the payroll, the reporting, pull your own analytics. Well, when you do that, you're taking time away from what's the most important strategic vision that you have, which is delivering that experience. So what we tried to do at eTech is the first thing we've done is we said, what are these jobs that the coaches are doing that are tasks that can be done by admin support, and get that off their plate? Because as a leader, if we hired you as a leader to coach people, your God-given skills should be what? Coaching. So how do I give you more time in your day back? So as a young leader, I would say I'd be writing down, where am I spending my time? And if I'm spending an hour and a half, I'm pulling reports as an example. That leader is paid much higher than an admin support person. So we're clear. So is that hour and a half spent to pull data together to be able to do the work that I have to do the rest of the day? Is that the most valuable resource? The answer is no. So what you want to do is you want to ask for those support things. You want to, and it's hard for people to make decisions until you look at the data. And again, as a data guy, but if, for us, if I go to our leaders, if I go to our board and say, hey, we're spending on average, 2 hours a day in clerical support stuff from a leader. You multiply that across your entire organization, that's a lot of money. And then you say, we can reduce that by 50% by giving them some admin support to do this work and let them spend the time on the coaching. And the value proposition of that is if they spend more time coaching, your attrition is going to go down. Because let's be honest, when you look at the attrition, which is one of the biggest opportunities in the call center, why are people leaving? It's not because they hate their job. It's usually because, and while you read articles, they'll say it's because they hate their boss. Let's peel that onion back a little bit. It's usually not pay. They say it's pay, but everybody's never paid enough. But if you think about it, where we talk about they hate their boss, let's be reasonable. Why do they hate their boss? Is it because their boss isn't supporting them enough? Are they not coaching them enough? Are they just going out and saying, hey, Michael, you need to get more sales? That's not coaching, right? As you know, you're the expert at this. Coaching is showing them and doing skill transfers. Michael, I listened to 100 calls. Here's what's going on. Here's the 3-4 things that you really are doing well, and I'm proud of you for that. But here's 2 things specifically in the sales cycle that you're not doing well on, and let me show you what a better approach would be. And then you role play with that person. That's what they're supposed to be doing. So that's really and when you do the coaching at that level, your attrition goes down, people feel empowered. What's in it for them? If it's a sales program, if we're going to be honest with each other, the agent's making commissions, right? So what's in it for them is more money. If it's a customer experience division or customer service, what's in it for them? Well, they won't be getting yelled at as much if you follow the right guidelines and procedures by telling the customer no and how to say no. So there are wins in for the agent. And that's what I think as a frontline leader, a lot of time we focus on that time management, like you say, and we're so worried about the tasks of the things I have to do. Let's find out what it is and how can I automate that process? How can I get support to help me with this process and spend my time, 80% of the time plus building a relationship with my agents so that I don't have a revolving door, and coach them to what they're capable of doing. Because remember, a lot of people also talk about the call center. It's the first job, right? It's the stepping stone. It's just for money. Not everybody believes that. We have several leaders at eTech who started as agents who are VPs, SVPs, and directors today. So not everybody's going to be that, but there are people out there that take the advice and use them as stepping stones to have a career.
So total side question. What's the longest tenured frontline employee that you have? Just stayed on the front lines the whole time.
So if I'm not mistaken, Patrick Reynolds and Laminta Fowler were at your event back in 2002. I think
20 years.
I think they were senior agents at the time, because there was about, if I'm not mistaken, because it's been a long time and I'm old, as you remember. But I think there was like 20 of us or 15 of us that went there.
Sure.
Patrick today is a VP. So that's 21, 22 years, Laminta 22 years, and Chandra, our VP of customer experience, she was at that event when we first met. She's been here 18 years.
Wow.
And she was, I want to say, and I'm probably wrong, but I think she was in support at the time, which is what I'm talking about. Like she was in operations support or an agent, one or the other back then. And today she's a VP.
Perfect. Listen, I'm gonna toss you a really easy softball, but one that I think is of value. So give me the top 4 or 5 things that if you're looking to outsource, that you should be looking for in your outsourcer.
Sure. So it's funny you say that, because I talk to a lot of people who look at outsourcing and they look at the wrong things, in my opinion. They look at experience in the industry, which I think is the biggest fallacy in the world. And here's why. Just because someone has experience in the industry does not say that they're doing it right. I could be taking calls for, and I'll just throw one out there, as a master of XYZ for 20 years, but how do I know it's really good? So I always say, and I go back to the look at things differently. That's not as important as the leadership. Number one, I would be looking at the leadership. The leadership is probably the most important part. Who's running the day-to-day? Who is actually behind the vision and the strategy to make those remarkable difference? Number 2, size is important, but I would also say, like, there's a reason eTech is not 20, 30,000 seats. We believe as a global company with 10 contact centers in 3 countries that we're large enough to handle any corporate account, but we're still small enough to handle you as an individual. So I would be talking about the another thing I would look at is it has to be the right size. Yeah. You don't want to have somebody who has 50 seats, but you don't want to have somebody who has 50,000 seats, because I think you get lost in that. And then the third one, I would talk about the processes that they have to onboard an agent. I would look for their training programs, because people come to me and say, well, how long is your training? And it's a loaded question. Training's ongoing. Well, yeah, but when we onboard an agent, we train them for 2 weeks, they're on the phones and they're good to go. Well, that's probably why you're looking for a new outsourcer, because if you train them for 2 weeks and you don't have follow-up training and continual training, training's a journey. It's not a destination. So I'll be looking at their training programs and how they train. And then that's probably my top 3 ones I would be looking at. And I mean, just to throw my own selfish plug in there, how are they using data to make strategic decisions? Because the one thing eTech does is we use all that data and those insights, again, just to wrap it up it's not just agent performance, because agent performance should come with your contract. What additional value adds are you giving me as an outsourcer to help me propel my career as the person who hired you and their brand? And that's where that voice of customer sentiment, that's where all of those insights about the brand, what are they saying about you, your brand, your processes, that's probably the other thing that would elevate, I'd be looking at, because anybody can tell you how many calls I took. Anybody can tell you average handle time. Anybody can give you all that basics. It's the value add you're bringing. eTech believes in a trusted advisor relationship model, so that when you hire us, we earn the right to give you advice on things you should change or could change in your business model to make you better and make your customer happier.
Okay. Asking this a little differently, give me something that leaders today, just globally, that they're just kind of missing. And I know we talked about big data, so I guess I'm looking for something a little bit different than that. Just that I'm always looking for that one little nugget that people can use when they're, when you just look at the business differently. You've been at it for 30 plus years. What are some people missing? And just to give you an example, some people have, given me their perspective on AI and what the potential is for AI, or, they've talked about the whole, great American, kind of retirement, and the struggle for getting people. So totally up in the air. You pick your own.
Yeah. So I would think the one thing I would probably say passionately is the ideas. So a lot of people, young leaders.
I lost you. There you are. I lost you for a second there. You're back.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I think I hit my desk.
Okay.
So I think the one thing that people miss is ideas. And it's funny because when people get hired in the contact center business, a lot of people think it's tell me what you want me to do. And I think that's just a terrible model. The model should be like, how could I improve? There are so many ideas that come from agents, by the way, and that can actually improve processes. And I think the leaders need to be speaking up, because the agents tell the leaders usually, man, this is terrible. This is a terrible process. These customers are complaining. So the leader believes in their heart, well, this is the way the customer told us to do it, so this is what we should do. And I disagree with that concept, because I believe in, if there's a better way to do something, or maybe they just don't know because they never did it, we should be offering that to that. So what I always say is always bring your ideas to the front. Doesn't mean they're all going to be implemented. Let's be clear. But you can get one or two good nuggets. I will tell you, at eTech, agents have told us placement on a screen when they were going through processes. And when you and I are thinking about this, you're like, what are they saving, a half a second? But you know what? When you make those UX design changes, it actually improved productivity and improved the retention. And by the way, when you do something that was easy and the agent saw that you did an idea from them, right? They'll give you more ideas to streamline your business. So that's probably the one thing I would say people miss. Because, and again, I'm always about thought leadership. What can we do better? How can we do it better? And the only person that knows is the guy or girl taking that call every day or that chat every day, telling us about the process.
All right, going to shift over to some advice and perspective or experience on the ever-growing, forever staying at-home agent.
Yeah, so eTech took 82% of our workforce home in about 7 days during COVID.
Wow.
We are, and yeah, the IT guys are amazing at eTech. They actually did it. They deployed everything and just did an amazing job, and we're thankful for them. But it's funny you say that. So our COO said the first week or 2 weeks, man, look at this. Productivity went up, retention is up, everything's up for 2 weeks. And I said, sit back, buddy. I said, because not everybody can work from home. You have to be disciplined, as you know. So eTech prefers brick and mortar. That's why we have 10 sites. So we did bring most people back. Our work from home policy is you have to earn the right to do it. It's not a gift. So you have to maintain your KPIs, your quality scores, your behaviors, all those things have to be at a level of acceptance for not only eTech, but our customers. And then we let you work from home. I think the biggest opportunity in based in I speak to people is giving the agents the tools to be successful working from home.
Yeah.
A Zoom call in coaching is not the same. That's why eTech deployed a lot of technology we created ourselves. As an example, we have a platform called QEval, which automatically assigns training based on what we're seeing in those interactions. So the agent can literally go through self-learning from home, right? And we document the whole process. So we know they clicked through it. We know they took the video. We know they took the master course. And then we can look at the results to see if they're actually improving. Because I also believe that when you're at home, you're not getting coached as much as when you're in the call center. So you have to give them the tools and evolve tools to help them self-coach. Because I believe in my heart, 95% of the people want to do a good job, but you got to give them the successful tools. And one of those tools is letting them learn on their own at their own pace so that they can get better, because everybody learns differently.
Okay, great.
That's one of the things I saw in the work from home.
Perfect. Hey, what do you do when you don't work?
So I love to cook. I'm a food guy. So if you follow me on Facebook, you'll see I post lots of pictures of food. If you want my sarcasm, follow me on Instagram. Business is on LinkedIn. But I love to cook. I do sushi. I do steak. I have rotisserie. I love to cook. Number two, my wife and I like to give back to the communities. It's part of eTech's culture that we've learned from them. So we volunteer at food banks here in San Antonio. Like to do a lot of things for underprivileged children. We're very passionate. We have our own kids, obviously, as well, but we like to do a lot of volunteering things and try to help our own communities wherever one of our locations are. That's pretty much what I like to do besides cooking. I golf in the summertime. That's about it. I don't have a lot of hobbies other than cooking and giving back. That's probably about it.
What's a recent article that you read that you liked? You mentioned articles earlier. What are some articles maybe we should go check out that you've read recently?
So recently, our COO actually at eTech, and I'm not trying to give her a selfless plug, but it's the last one I read. She just did one on culture, building culture in the call centers. It's on eTech's website, but it's like a 5-minute read, but she really talks about how you use culture into the organization to bring in training and help people feel part of the value proposition and tell them the why they're here, which is pretty cool when you think about it. We always think about a job as a job, but she really does an awesome job of all of eTech centers about why you're here and why it's important. And I think she did a really good job talking about that culture. That's a good one. The other ones I've read recently are really around tech stacks and where the technology is going. There is a lot of technology out there. So I just published one myself on speech analytics that was featured as an MVP in some I forget which one it was now. Oh, customer contact. That was, man, it just got it last week, and I forget that it was on speech analytics and the importance of human intelligence behind the speech analytics.
Sure.
I'd self-promote my COO's blogs, but I read so much. I mean, John Maxwell is one of my favorite people I follow. Love his stuff. I also look at just about any thought leader out there. So I encourage people to join groups on LinkedIn, and I would look at, yourself as well. You guys publish a lot of content. I don't have a favorite. I have several favorites, but I read all that I can consume, and then I save or print or forward out the ones that I actually got something from. I do read a lot that I get nothing from, because some people do publish out content to try to sell you things, where I'm more interested in learning.
Sure. Well, listen, hey, what question should I have asked you that I didn't?
I think the biggest one I would say you didn't ask me is, why did I start my career in the contact center industry? Because we hear so much bad stuff about the contact center industry. And I got to tell you, when I came out of college, my first job was as an agent. And like everybody, they said, well, that's just a stepping stone, right? I worked for a company called Dun & Bradstreet as an agent. And I will tell you, you either love the call center or hate the call center. Fortunately for me, I love it. And I met this gentleman, Matt Rocco, who's our president and CEO of VTech. So I worked for him at Dun & Bradstreet. So I worked for him at 2 different companies, by the way. And it was funny because I walked into his office because he introduced himself to me and I was just an agent. And he says, what do you want to do when what's your career aspirations? And I said, well, I want your job, because he was in this big, huge office, right? And that's where that mentorship came in. He became my mentor. And the more I learned about the contact center and the more I learned about the value proposition of why your job is so important, even though you're just answering phones or whatever it was, the more I liked it. And then I learned the relationship part about, while we may help people solve problems on the tech side, we may help, people fix something on their car or whatever it is. What I've learned through all of that is you're really changing people's lives. That's really what you're doing. And when you learn that and you're able to experience how you've taken these young kids and helped grow them beyond an agent to a leader, to a director, to whatever, I think that's the biggest satisfaction. So it's not just a job. The contact center industry, as it's changed, because remember, it used to be call center, then contact center, because you have email and chat. Now they're called engagement solutions because it's social media, Twitter. But at the end of the day, it's that people skill. Contact centers at a whole, it's a valuable experience, regardless of what you see in the industry and regardless what's published on social media. We are not calling you for your warranty. I can assure you of that, your car warranty. So the people that work for us and the people that I'm able to engage with every day are making people's lives better.
Super. Well, listen, Jim, I'm so grateful for you spending some time with us on this video podcast. And, I end every single podcast the exact same way. And what I do is I tell folks, listen, you can be a great leader. It just requires a lot of hard work. It requires focus, and it requires you to bring somebody alongside you, which is a mentor, which is exactly what Jim mentioned when he talked to you. He said his number one recommendation was get a mentor and then begin to read and self-learn and reinvent yourself. And he and I both have just lived in this space for a really long time. It's not a bad place to be because you get to meet a lot of great people and help change people's lives. And so, Jim, once again, I'm very grateful that you joined us. For those of you that are listening, thanks so much. Check out my podcast as well. Look for Jim's article, if you can find it, or COO's article at eTech. And we look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Thank you so much.